read his responses can do so. Alex, in 2018, founded the NICU Dad, an online platform aimed at providing support and resources to other NICU dads going through the same experience. As part of his commitment to supporting NICU dads, Alex hosts the NICU Dad podcast, where he interviews experts and shares stories of resilience and hope from other NICU dads. He's also a Vaughan family advisor and serves as the chair of the Dell's Children's Ascension NICU Network, PFAC. Alex is a member of the Dell Children's Medical Center NICU Quality Improvement Team and the Dell Children's Medical Center PFAC. He brings unique perspective as a NICU dad to these roles, advocating for improvements in care and support for families. Alex is also a NICU dad peer-to-peer mentor, providing emotional support and guidance to other NICU dads. Through his work, Alex is making meaningful impact on the lives of NICU dads, helping them navigate the challenges and find hope in difficult times. And I have to say, Alex, sharing your presentation with my husband last night, he was like, wow, I would have totally benefited from this 5-6 years ago. I wish that he had been doing this when we were going through this. So with that, Alex, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I am Alex Zavala, and I am going to be talking about disparities in family-centered care, but from a NICU dad's perspective. And I just want to warn that some of the photos might be a little triggering. And also, too, when we talk about NICU dads, we're also talking about about non-birthing parents also. But just for me, I'm a NICU dad, so I keep it in that perspective. All right, next slide. So in December of 2012, we found out we were pregnant. We were a high-risk pregnancy due to the fact that 9 years earlier, our oldest, my stepdaughter, was born at 30 weeks. She weighed 3 pounds, 6 ounces. We were doing everything we could to try to go full term. We were seeing specialists and having so many ultrasounds. We actually joked that we had more pictures of our baby before she was even born than most people have of their 1-year-olds. We even did progesterone shots, which that was an ordeal within itself. There was tons of bruising and so many tears. My wife actually had a hard time also. But when we finally hit 27 weeks on a Thursday, we went to our doctor and we had an FFN test. Our doctor told us we had a 2-week window of not having a baby. Once again, that was Thursday. Next slide. The following Monday morning, my wife went to work. I dropped our daughter off at grandma's so I could go to work also. And at 9 a.m., my wife called. She was crying hysterically. I couldn't understand what she was saying. The only thing I could make out was that her water broke. Then the phone went dead. Luckily, her coworker, who was a family friend, called back and told me that her water broke and an ambulance was coming to take her to the hospital. I thought we lost our baby. We were barely at 27 weeks. I was 45 minutes away from the hospital, but I made the trip in about 20 minutes. That car ride was one filled with tears, promises, deals with God to please not let me lose my family. I arrived at the hospital, and it was like a scene from a movie. The car comes screeching in, me jumping out, running through the hospital, trying to find my wife. I get to labor and delivery and find out that they were trying to keep the baby from coming. But she was breached and in distress. We had to have an emergency C-section. Next slide. Around noon, our baby was born at 27 weeks. She weighed 2 pounds, 5 ounces. They took our daughter to the NICU while they worked on my wife. She was not doing well. While my wife was recovering, I went to the NICU to see our daughter. I would take pictures and try to share with my wife since she was not able to see our daughter. And then I would go back and forth from my daughter to my wife, trying to be at both places at the same time. This was the beginning of what I call the NICU Dad Shuffle. Within 2 hours of being born, our baby was transported to another hospital with a level 4 NICU. I was asked if I wanted to follow the ambulance to the hospital. I couldn't believe it, but I said no. I couldn't. My wife didn't have anything with her. I had to make sure that she had everything she needed. I had to also go home and make sure everything was taken care of there, check on our pets. Then I had to also check on our oldest daughter, who was still at grandma's, and explain to her what was happening, and also let her know that she was now going to have to stay there for a while. Next slide. Once that was taken care of, I finally arrived at the hospital later that evening. I had never been to this hospital before. I had no clue of where to go. The social worker had given us some information at the other hospital, but with all the information that was coming at me, it was like drinking from a fire hose. Once I finally found the hidden NICU around 7 p.m., and this NICU was really hidden. We would spend 67 days in the NICU, and most of my days consisted of going to the NICU first thing in the morning, then going to work, then coming back to the NICU, and finally going home. And repeat it all again the next day, and again the next day, and again the next day. Next slide. When we finally were able to bring our baby home, things didn't end there. It was a series of doctor's visits, more doctor's visits, evaluations and therapies, both physical and occupational, and most were actually done at our home. We had so many appointments, so many therapies that I basically had to stop working and become a stay-at-home dad. We would social distance for an entire year while our daughter's immune system got stronger. We weren't risking any chance of her having to go back to the hospital. Next slide. With our NICU stay and our year of social distancing, one of the biggest things that took a toll was my health. I had never been more stressed in my life. I went through the trauma of the NICU, and my stress actually doubled when we brought our baby home. There was no NICU staff to turn to. Everyone was counting on me. And during that entire time, from our NICU stay, that year of social distancing, I would gain almost 100 pounds. I was diagnosed with high blood pressure, hypertension, type 2 diabetes. I had been taking care of everyone and everything else. I left absolutely nothing for myself. I had zero self-care. How does this happen? No one was checking on me. There were no medical checkups. I wasn't filling out any forms, asking if I had any of these symptoms, or if I was even coping well. Next slide. For dads or non-birthing parents, this exclusion or neglect is all too common, and it's a huge disparity in family-centered care. We are conditioned to just sit in the corner. It starts in these early doctor's visits. We are never spoken to or even asked any questions. Many times it feels like you were just the driver that brought mom to the visit. I've spoken to dads that have actually shared to me that they were at a doctor's visit and the doctor asked mom about her family medical history. While she's answering, he started thinking about his so he could be ready when they asked him. They never asked him. There's also a system that doesn't look at things from a dad or a non-birthing parent perspective. An example of this is when I arrived at that hospital at the NICU for the first time, I was all alone trying to figure out just where the entrance for the hospital was. Searching for a NICU. NICUs are usually hidden away. All while I was carrying the trauma from the scariest day of my life. There are so many options that could have been made, so my arrival would have been so much easier had someone just put themselves in my shoes. There's also no data that correctly measures the trauma that we suffer or what our mental health looks like during a NICU stay. Why is that? Because no one is asking. No one is checking. There is no chart for you, so there's no care. Next slide. So what are the results of these disparities? What does it cause a parent to do? This causes dads to withdraw. I should just sit here and be quiet. It causes dads to hesitate to participate. Again, I should just sit here and be quiet. An example of this is kangaroo care, skin to skin. Dads are thinking, this is for mom. It's more important that she have the skin to skin. I should just sit here and be quiet. It also causes a lack of trust. How much trust can I put in a system that neglects me? Which in turn causes more trauma. You are in one of the most stressful times of your life, and you are carrying around more trauma than anyone can imagine, and you are doing it alone. There's no one to talk to or to turn to. Next slide. Maybe if we define the roles or take a look at the responsibilities that these parents are dealing with on a daily basis and the weight that they are carrying, maybe then we can see that they might be more important and more valuable than how the system views and treats them. You're a husband. You're taking care of your wife. I had to make sure my wife had everything she needed. You're a parent. You're taking care of all of your kids, both in the NICU and out. Our oldest was 9 years old when we were in the NICU, and I had to figure out how to make the hospital fun. She didn't want to be there, but she had to. We explored every inch of that hospital, even some places we probably shouldn't have been. You're also an employee, and so you still have to take care of work. You're a homeowner. You still have to take care of things at home if something breaks. For us, like so many NICU families, we actually moved during our NICU stay, which, I mean, talk about added stress. You're a facilitator of information. I was getting information in the NICU and had to relay it to my wife, who was at a completely different hospital. You're a nurse, a therapist. My wife had a C-section, and I had to help her in the days after to help her heal correctly. I had to dress her wounds. I had to help make sure that her mental health was okay. As a spouse, we're the ones that have to look for the symptoms of postpartum. You're also a driver, delivery guy. My wife couldn't drive for weeks while she healed. I had to drive her to the NICU, doctor's appointments. I had to also go pick up groceries, medications, and all other necessities. Anything that we needed, there was only one person that could get it, and that was me. And these are the responsibilities that are every day in the NICU for these parents. You have to figure out how to take care of everything and everyone every day, all the while walking in your trauma. Next slide. So what are some solutions? Change the stereotypes, change the culture. Dads are no longer smoking cigars in the lobby while their babies are being born. They are in the delivery room. There are now more than ever more stay-at-home dads. Dads are now involved. We also need to create awareness. How are we just now having a conversation about dads and non-birthing parents? How many presentations have you yourself seen on this topic? We have to get this on more platforms and get the discussions out there and had. We also have to promote inclusion. Just being in the room is not inclusion. Ask dads if they want to be included. Ask dads if they want to help. I can't tell you how many dads have told me that they just sit there waiting for their turn to help in the care of their baby. They sit there and they watch and learn, just getting ready for that moment, and they were never asked. Family-centered care should include the whole family. Next slide. Once we get through these disparities, then maybe we can actually start talking about the real help that NICU dads need. Some of these are focusing on self-care while in the NICU, both mentally and physically, like getting exercise and good nutrition and also counseling. Helping them focus on getting in the absolute best shape, both mentally and physically, to prepare them for when they do take their babies home and everyone will be leaning on them to be the best version of themselves when everyone is going to be counting on them. And lastly, and most importantly, peer-to-peer mentoring, which I feel is the absolute number one thing for dads in the NICU. Next slide. I was fortunate to have a NICU staff that actually promoted inclusion. They forced me to get in there and participate. And the support that we received in the NICU was just so amazing that we were compelled to return the favor. It helped me find my voice and start my NICU Dad journey. I started the NICU Dad and the NICU Dad podcast, and now I work with so many incredible individuals and organizations. I, along with my family, we're ambassador families for organizations like March of Dimes, Ronald McDonald House, and it is a small fraction of what we feel we received when we were in the NICU. Next slide. And this is my why. My 19-year-old 30-weeker, who is barely 5 foot tall, and our 10-year-old 27-weeker, who we just found out should be 5'8" when it's all said and done. And that's my presentation.